Hello and welcome back, this is ProTailDev, here with another Harvest Mouse Game Jam video. It's the 10th day of the Game Jam. After this video there will only be one more video, which is on the final day, which is the 11th day. I will most likely do like a small review at the end of the video, which will just show a bit of my thoughts about the whole experience. Anyway, let's get into the 10th day. Okay, so the first thing I did was, because this was the 10th day, I wanted to have a proper playthrough of the first level and make sure everything was working, which I did. I then created a quick list of things I need to do, just to try and make sure that I can keep. These are just things I picked out just after that one playthrough. Later on, I'll have an updated version of that list. And so with that, the first thing I did from that list was work on making sure that the score was counting properly whenever we destroyed an enemy, and make sure that score was counting correctly for other things, but also making sure that we would only instantiate the spirit ball once. And since they're controlling the same thing, all I wanted to do was add a do once bool, which would turn false, but then set it true whenever the enemy is actually gone and the ball has the enemy actually has been destroyed, so we can do it again. But the enemy is usually destroyed, so it's just in case. So that was really straightforward. As you can see, it was. After that, what I did was add some gravity to the spirit shot projectile, just to make it a little bit different rather than just going straight on. And then I made sure that you can only do one active at a time, so you have to be more strategic when firing it. And I just did that with a bool, which again would set false and then would set true again, so you can shoot it again once it was deleted, once it's been destroyed. Next, I worked on enemy collisions so that the enemy could bump into the player and they couldn't go through them, because it would just be kind of a bit annoying. And that was really straightforward to do. I've done it in the past with collisions, just having two collisions on an enemy, and then having them kind of overlap, one being a trigger and one being an actual collider, which is their main body. Which is what I did here. I had a plain game object and add a collision to that as its main body. And obviously, I wanted the enemy to ignore like pretty much everything apart from the player. This meant that they would be able to go through trees. The enemies wouldn't get stuck on things. They would only get stuck. They only couldn't go through the enemy, through the player, while they could go through everything else. So there you go. Now we've got enemies that can block our way, and they aren't going right through us, which just looks a bit rubbish. After that, what I did was lower the scale of the spirit trees, because they were just a little bit too big. And here's the final stage of the spirit tree there. After that, what I did was go to the golden cubes. This was like a little effect that I wanted a few days before, and I implemented these cubes. What the cube would be on every single spirit tree stage, and then once it got to the final stage, there would be a beam that comes out of the cube into the main cube that's already in the level, I think. I think I implemented in the level. We'll see. Anyway, yeah, here's the beam that I create, and basically this is on the 5th stage, just to show that the spirit tree is done and you can leave go to the next level. I also made it a rotation script as well. So here's the cube I was doing right in the center at the very top. Once, like I said, it's been completed, the light will basically go to that cube. That cube's always there. Like I said, after that I did a rotation script. This is just a very straightforward script just to rotate the object, to add a little bit of effect to the cubes and the cubes in the spirit shot. So there we go, there it is, just rotating. I'm just having a look at it in the scene. And then I add it up to all of our different spirit trees. These are just nice little effects I kind of wanted to add. After that, I made some slight redesigns to the end screen UI, made it a bit more easier to see the text, made it bigger, changed the position, and just a slight redesign, make it look a little bit better. After that, I wanted to change the spirit shot projectile size and also add the rotation to that, again adding some effect. Changed the collision so that the collision was a little bit more accurate, and also made our float for the rotation public so that we can edit it in the inspector. Gave it a quick test and it was working. So this time I added a counter for the HUD to be able to, for the player to be able to see what enemies are still alive. Didn't show much of this because obviously I've already shown it multiple times, but it's basically me just showing the string on screen of all the enemies that are alive. The code's already pretty much implemented because I have it in the stats at the end screen as well, if there are any enemies you left alive. After that I did an arm model for the player, again with the spirit ball rotating at the front as almost like a weapon. And I had a little bit of fun with this, I had different ideas of how I wanted to do it, but I just decided to use the assets that were already in the game and just resize them. So I used the vines, the thorns, and I also used the spirit ball as the projectile that's in the center, as you'll see in a minute. But I tried different things, tried make it look unique and different, and had a lot of fun with the colors, trying different stuff. So there you go, that's what it looks like. Me just shooting, and then I thought that was a bit too distracting with it being taking up too much of the screen, so I'd moved it to the side a little bit, and then had to reposition it, making sure it was accurate, it wasn't too in the way of the screen. And there we go, it looks quite nice. I thought it looked pretty cool. After that I went into paint.net because I only needed a quick icon or an object for the crosshair. So I wanted to, with the shooting, which is basically almost like a first-person shooter, pretty much is. I wanted there to be a crosshair in the center where you could shoot and you could kind of work out where your projectile's going. It just is an added bonus. So when I implemented that, I had to then make sure the sizes were correct. It wasn't too big, it wasn't too small, and I had to make sure that the projectiles were actually going at least towards the center of that circle. And as you can see, they're not, so I had to move around the positioning of our object, our arm, and the shot to make it more centered, and there we go. Best I was going to get it. So that was the final test. See what it looks like. I also made the projectile slightly smaller. That was inside the arm. After that I needed to fix a few claim effects which were disappearing and appearing incorrectly and at different times, so I needed a few do-onces and needed to make sure that things were activated correctly with being enabled correctly and disabled in certain places. So minor changes there. Quick note that a lot of things that I've done I've changed off screen. I've cut out a lot of it. I'm speeding through quite a lot of things here, but I've actually cut out quite a lot, as you'll see in a minute with the updated notes that I ended up taking as I went through the editing process of doing all this. I found bugs and other things that I wanted to change, and you'll see that list in a minute, an updated version. But yeah, I basically got everything done, and I eventually left it just to the sound and music. So I'm just doing a quick test here again, and there was quite a lot of tests that I actually cut out in the end. So here what I'm doing is I'm adding platforms with spirit balls on them which the player can jump for. Obviously one of the punishments was that if you jump your score will lower, so the more jumps you do the less score you'll have, but it's also a way of getting spirit energy or health, so that you can get back on your feet if you're low. And then I made sure that there was a border, and I would put that on the spirit balls that spawn, so that if the spirit balls end up hitting the border of the map and just falling down, then they'll be deleted, so it doesn't cause problems later on. You know, performance issues, just leaving them going. Because if you kill an enemy over the ocean, it could cause huge problems. So there, and what I'm doing is I'm now working on the sound effects. I made my own custom sound effects, and all I did was go into Audacity and record a bunch of sounds. Here what I'm doing is I'm recording a bunch of enemy sounds, and then I'm going to combine them all into one to make it a really weird sound. I do show the sound in a minute, so that you can hear it, but I won't do it for the 10th video because there's no point. You can always play the game and see what it sounds like. So here's the different sounds, the enemy sounds together, and then I merge them all into one, and that's this enemy sound. So what I also do is, you may have heard it just then, but I just played the sound. I'll do that as well in a minute for the other sound effects that I've got. But here I am just recording them, you know, just recording with my mouth pretty much, just making the sounds up. Okay, and I kind of just play around with it. I spend a little bit of time showing you this because I haven't really shown me making those sounds before. Not directly anyway. I've usually just skipped over it in other game jams, and in, for example, my turtle trial video, I just kind of skipped over it a little bit. I showed it briefly, but it's me just editing, adding sound effects to different things, testing them out, and I do this a lot. I just play around with stuff. Now what I did then was implement them. Okay, and that was what you just heard then, was all. I had to go quiet there, but that was all the different audio that I've implemented. After that, I wanted to create an audio manager which would handle all the different sound effects, which is much better than how I was doing it in my Turtle Trial game. I think I'm going to do this method in the future. I learned this from a YouTuber called Bracca, which was really good. I was looking for a better way of handling sound, and he just had such much better method. So what you're seeing here is I'm just getting all the different properties on a class, which I'll just call to whenever I'm handling other sounds that are in the game. So this is just a simple class I can call on with all the different properties and all the different effects and sounds, and then I also need to actually get the sound, the reference to them. So I have to put the audio manager into just a normal manager that I've created with which is an empty game object, and then just loop through all the different sounds to get them all, get all the settings and the properties, which are all linking into the inspector, which again I'm referencing it using just dragging and dropping them into that, and then just setting up the script so that they work. Again, credit goes to Bracca. I really like how he's done this. I think it works really well, and it's much better than the system the way I was doing it in the Turtle Trial and other game jams. So all I'm doing is playing through the different array list of all the sounds that we've got based on what name they are, and then I'm giving a warning just in case I don't have the sound that I'm calling on, so if it's null. And then this is something I didn't even think of doing, which was to instantiate the game object for Audio Manager, so that there's only one playing, so that sound can transfer across and music can transfer across. That way you don't interrupt the sounds when you're loading or if you want it carried on playing. After that, a simple line of code to play the audio. So then what I did was set up all the audio sources in the different things, so the player, the enemy, and make sure that they're all named. I implemented all the different sounds, and yeah, went through each one, made sure that they were named correctly, and then added in the appropriate copy and paste this line, which allows us to just play in audio from the list that we have from all the different sources we've implemented from the audio manager. Quick play. So there you go. I also slowed down the speed there just so you could hear it better as well. And I think that's it. So basically with this code I then implemented it all for things like the menu. Again, all I need to do is just play them once the sound was all implemented. So here I am just getting all copying and pasting the object. They're just finding the object and just playing the audio code, which is all I need to do. I just need to make sure that the name was correct, and did this for, like I said, the menu and things. So, quick play there, make sure it's all working again. And then once I'm finally pleased with it, with the sound and everything else, what I then do is I think I'd start implementing the music, if I remember correctly. So I got a royalty-free song, which is Bug Catch. I'll have a link in the description, and it's just from the audio library from YouTube. It's just a royalty-free music. It's in the credits as well. So then I implement that sound, which will just play. Really straightforward. Pretty much treated the same way the audio source is in the audio manager, which is what I really like about it. It was really quick to implement. And then what I worked on was the save and load for the score. So originally I wasn't going to have a save and load in the game. I was just going to have the player just go through the whole level and see what score, and just kind of beat something, and the score would be in individual levels. But in the end I decided that I wanted a save and load feature so that I could save a score, an overall score, and then have it shown on the menu. In the menu, should I say, and maybe have a separate screen. So here I am, I've skipped through a lot of the save and loading code because I've already shown it. I think I have a video that is specifically called save and load, which are doing this whole method anyway. So I'm not going to I don't show much of this code in me doing it. But basically, I got all the different scores, and then I'd add them all together in the end screen, and then I'd get the overall score saved, and then I'd load it. So I'd load it in the main menu, which is perfect for what I wanted. I just wanted the player to be able to override the current score, and that's the reason why we have an overall score in the first place, is so that it can be overridden while the other scores can't. So here I am just quickly testing it. I forgot to make the system serializable, which caused a little bit of an issue, but there we go, I'm trying it out, and I do another full run of this level to try and get a score. I skipped through a lot of it, obviously I don't want you to watch the whole thing, and then I get a score at the very end. I click next level and then forgot that I haven't actually built one yet, so it came up with an error, but there you go. In the main menu we have the high score from the first level. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to do was organize the level so that we can save it, and then save it as a brand new level, and that level would be 1B, and this would be our next level we're going to be working on. While organizing everything, I decided to put all the islands in their own sections. That way it's going to be easier later when I'm dealing with all the 5 trees in all the other levels, because I can basically just they're easily separated. After that organizing, I decided to add a player model just for effects, so that when the player looks down and sees a shadow, they see an actual creature. I think it looks cooler, it adds to it a little bit more, and adds to the immersion. Also, when you look fully down, you can see your own body, and it doesn't break the immersion as much. Test that out, because I was quite happy with it. I made sure that the spirit ball projectile that's in the model was gold, because it stands out more. And then moved on to saving a new level, basically making a duplicate. And then after that I played around with building it out. So again, I show a little bit of the building, how I do it, because I haven't really shown much of that throughout this building process. But this video, we're coming to the end of this video now, and what I do here is just basically save and deal with all of the rocks as well, adding collisions and things, make sure the rocks are okay, and tagged with ground so I can jump on them and use them as platforms as well in the level, and just build out the level a little bit. Yeah, so basically the next day is going to be working on saving for multiple of these levels, and adding in a bunch more. I think in the total I had 6 total levels that were implemented, so I did a lot in the next day, and I implemented a save for each one, would save an individual score at the very end, an overall score, which would then show in the main menu with a brand new score, so which is a collection of all of the total. So here I am just creating the level. I speed through it quite quickly because I don't want to go over it too much. It's really simple, just placement of prefabs and objects to try and get across the level, and then moving around the islands and then setting the player to the starting island. And a quick test, make sure it's working. I do also add in, do make the waves harder by adding more enemies and less rate in which they spawn, but here I am as well, just making sure I can't jump to that island because it looked quite close. So yeah, I do change the wave system as well and add in more enemies and rate as you go through the levels. So yeah, that's it. We did quite a lot in this video, and there was a lot that I ended up cutting out. especially when it came to doing lots of different things with the like fixing and bugs. Yeah, there's a lot of bugs and fixing I ended up doing, which I've cut out, and as you can see with the list, I worked on quite a lot of different things. Okay, so in the next day, like I said, working on levels, working on adding the new save score, more scores that can add up to the main menu, with an overall total, and pretty much the game is in a finished state at this point, and you'd expect so with the 10th day. The following, like I said, the following day is literally just levels, so, and then after that it's the finish, it's the credits that I'll implement and do a bunch of testing before it releases. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed, and so yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Look forward to the final day. See you next time.